In the entire story of Chainsaw Man, we have seen some characters with incredibly bad luck. We've seen bad luck that ended with betrayal, bad luck that ended with enslavement, and bad luck that ended entire families. Chainsaw Man is a story just made up of bad luck characters that have seen some insane. However, even with all this, no one's luck is worse than Denji with women. Because the one thing that Denji has always wanted is a woman in his life, whether it was just for lust or for actual love. However, to this point, he has been unable to really achieve either. One woman was the closest thing that Denji had ever experienced to actual love. Turns out she was a Russian spy sent to end him. Another woman was Denji's biggest crush. Turns out she only had eyes for another man. And another woman who was one of Denji's closest friends, she was literally split in half right in front of him. Denji can't catch a break. In a world where bad luck is rampant, Denji's experience with women might be at the peak of its bad luck, and it all started with public safety double hunter Himeno.
デンジ君が悪魔を倒したらベロ入れたキスしてあげる
This is Himeno, or as Denji calls her, Barf Woman. And this is because one of Denji's most memorable moments with her was when she literally vomited in his mouth. Before this incident, Himeno and Denji had been part of a squad to take down the Eternity Double. During this mission, Himeno quickly became friendly with Denji to the point where it was a bit too friendly because Himeno promised to French kiss him if he took down the Eternity Double. Denji, who had never kissed a girl in his life, was a man on a mission and by doing Chainsaw Man things, was able to beat the Eternity Double to submission. And Himeno made good on her promise, and during a public safety rookie welcome party, Himeno fully made out with Denji. Denji had finally achieved his first ever kiss and was probably celebrating. However, Himeno was extremely drunk, and this celebration turned to tragedy as she got sick in Denji's mouth. This moment was so traumatizing that Denji actually went unconscious, but even with this incident, Himeno and Denji were able to create an odd friendship, and later on, Himeno actually became the first person to say that she would be Denji's friend. However, unfortunately, this friendship was not meant to last. This was because later on, in a massive fight against the Katana Man, Himeno in a Hail Mary effort attempted to save Denji and her other colleagues. And while this ended up saving Denji, Himeno didn't fare as well, and her entire body literally disappeared from existence. Denji's first ever friendship ended as soon as it started. However, even though Himeno was Denji's first ever official friend, he actually didn't feel anything about her passing. But later on, there were other girls that definitely made Denji feel something. During the beginning of Chainsaw Man, if you had told someone that Denji would be into someone more than Makima, they would have called you insane. And that's because ever since Denji had been found by Makima, he had basically been her lapdog.
Say Like it?
However, when he met Reze, this all changed. From the moment that Denji met Reze, he started to grow feelings for her to the point that he would show up to her workplace every day. This led to them going on dates, and Denji had a great time doing typical romantic teenager things like learning to do math and swim. Denji seemed to have found the one. However, this all changed when they both attended a fireworks festival. Initially, it all seemed like a normal date, and Denji even kissed Reze for the first time, but this kiss ended up with Denji losing his tongue. Like, literally losing his tongue, because Reze during the kiss bit Denji's tongue off. In an insane moment, Reze turned a romantic moment into a traumatic moment and revealed to Denji that she was actually the bomb double. In Reze's past, she was one of many children taken by the USSR for a special program to create Russian super soldiers. At some point during this program, she was actually infused with a piece of the bomb double, turning her into a powerful devil-human hybrid. Later on, when the Russians got word about Denji and his Chainsaw Man abilities, they had sent Reze to collect Denji's Chainsaw Man heart for their own uses. And because of how strong she was, she almost succeeded. At one point, Reze causes massive issues for Denji and his crew, enslaves a literal typhoon, and by herself decimates an entire public safety division headquarters. However, as Denji and Reze fought toe-to-toe, Denji was able to get the best of her, dragging her with him down the ocean. However, in the end, even after all the destruction that Reze had caused, Denji honestly didn't care and still had feelings for her. He even said that, quote, he wouldn't even mind being killed by her since she's hot. Because of this, Denji even offered Reze to run away with him and said that he would be waiting for her at her workplace the next day. While initially Reze rejected Denji's offer, at the last moment she changed her mind and headed toward Denji. However, right before Reze reached Denji, she was stopped from ever reaching him, leaving Denji waiting and depressed, thinking that a girl he loved just ghosted him. Denji just has no luck with women. However, even though going through something like this with a crush is incredibly sad, there's nothing like losing a close friend, which is exactly the case for Denji's situation with one of his closest friends, Power.
お前ら、敬語はどうした？
は？何の得もねえのに誰がてめえに敬語使うかよ。早川先輩。
先輩。
Unlike Reze, Denji's first interactions with Power were not so great. When Denji first met Power, she was an obnoxious, selfish blood fiend that would constantly get into bad situations or just annoy Denji. Denji's impression of her was so bad that the only good thing he saw in her was her body. This was to the point that later on, when Power asked Denji for help in saving her precious cat Meowie, he only agrees to help in exchange for being able to touch her chest. Denji is one thirsty man. And even when this mission ended up with Power betraying him and his life being threatened, he didn't care as long as he was able to touch her. However, even though Denji and Power's relationship started in this way, it didn't end up staying the same. As Denji and Power lived together, trained together, and went on missions together, Denji stopped seeing Power as just an annoying sexual target, but more as a messy, obnoxious little sister. While they still bickered with each other, they became very attached, basically sharing a family dynamic. After a traumatic fight with the Darkness Devil, Power actually gained extreme PTSD and became scared of almost everything. Denji in this situation did not abandon Power, but actually took care of her, bathing, feeding, and even sleeping with her, even foregoing a one-on-one trip with Makima to make sure Power would be okay. Denji, who at one point couldn't care less for Power's well-being, was giving up going on trips with his biggest crush to take care of her. However, while this relationship was great as it was the closest thing to family Denji had ever had, his closeness to Power would actually lead to an extremely traumatic moment. Because during his 17th birthday, he witnessed Power being literally split in half right in front of his face, which led to him becoming a depressed shell of himself. But who did this? Who would end Power's life literally in front of Denji? Well, it was none other than Denji's biggest crush, Makima.
わしとかなんじゃとかキャラ作りやがってよ。気持ち悪いな。
静かにできる？できる。
When Denji first meets Makima, she appears to be his savior, offering him food, shelter, and a chance at a normal life compared to his years of decrepit poverty. Because of this, Denji started to develop a deep crush on her and happily became her lapdog, being utterly loyal to Makima. However, Makima's kindness was a facade. In reality, she never liked Denji at all and saw him as insignificant because she only was using him to get closer to the Chainsaw Devil. And this was because Makima was a self-described Chainsaw Man fanatic. For Makima, one of her ultimate goals in life was to either control Chainsaw Man or be eaten by him. And she could only achieve this if she separated the Chainsaw Devil from Denji's heart. Because of this, Makima for the entire time she knew Denji, submitted, manipulated, and exploited him in order to destroy Denji's will, making him an unsuitable host for the Chainsaw Devil. Makima achieved this by providing Denji a new life, food and shelter, and even a family unit made up of Aki and Power, only to rip it all away from him. When Denji found love in Reze and was about to run away with her, Makima put a stop to it. When Denji was living a happy life with Aki, she put Denji in a situation where he had to kill Aki. And when Denji was reeling from Aki's death and Power was the only close friend he had left, Makima split her in half on Denji's birthday right in front of his face. Because of all this, Denji was left as a shell of himself, and Makima succeeded in summoning the Chainsaw Man. However, through a massive chain of events thanks to Power and Pochita, Denji was able to revive and defeat Makima. However, even after everything horrible that had happened, it didn't end there because in order to completely defeat Makima, Denji had to literally eat her, which he did in many separate meals, and Denji even claimed it was an act of love. Denji's encounters with women were a rollercoaster of horrible and unlucky incidents, but literally having to eat a girl he loves probably takes the cake.
昼飯何？
カレー。
やり。